We saw last that Jeremiah was called by God. He was called to be a prophet. That was someone at that time that talked, that voiced the voice of God, shared God's message with people. And many of these people were known to be loners, to be very weird to the normal eye. They were feared too, because nobody knew what they were going to say. If you read the story of many other prophets, especially in the books of Kings and Chronicles, you can see how they were coming to the court unannounced and seemingly randomly, because nobody knew the day they would come. And when they came, they were just saying, "This is what God says." And then they would just turn back and go. Nobody could do anything with them. Nobody could argue. And usually, quite often, actually, they were saying things that were sounding pretty bad. And because people knew that they were serious about it, that they were not to be bribed or intimidated, they were respected while feared. Now, Jeremiah was given messages from God, and God said, "You are going to say exactly what I say. Don't add, don't subtract, don't change anything, just say it the way it is." And God shared his heart with Jeremiah. He told him that he was so sorry. And you have to understand that when things go bad, people turn and say, "Why? I thought God was love." But you have to understand, through this you can read also who is God. God is a just judge. It's just like he said, "Stay in the house" to people the day of Passover. Stay in the house, put the blood of the lamb over the lintels and the doorpost, and don't come out. If you come out, you'll be killed. But if you stay indoors, it will be well with you. So what he was saying in effect is, you stay with me, you are safe. You flout my commands, ignore my warnings, then you choose your evil. You choose your suffering. That's the way it is. And so he was warning people. And what was the summary of these messages? He was telling people, you are going to suffer. The suffering will not be spiritual or even mental, it will be physical. There's going to be a war, there will be bloodshed, you'll be taken to exile, you'll be massacred, but it's your own choice. And you can still avert the situation. Remember the story of Jonah. He went to Nineveh, his arch enemies of his nations. And he went to tell them 40 days and the whole place will be wiped out. But you still have time to repent. The king heard it, removed his clothes, put ashes on himself, declared a fast. The whole town went on his knees, and Nineveh was saved. Nothing happened at that time, at least. So there is possibility. But what Jeremiah was telling people, that you are wrong. Anything you suffer that I'm now describing to you from God is going to happen to you if you don't change. What is wrong with you? The fact that God said, one, idolatry. They left the worship of God to follow other religions that were going nowhere. And remember that they were not just any nation. They were God's nation, God's chosen people. Secondly, God said, you are lying. All the leaders, all the prophets, so-called prophets, you are all lying through your teeth. You are proclaiming peace. Say, don't worry, nothing will happen to you. You know, everything is gonna to be rosy, hunky-dory, no problem. And all this, God said, is lies. And you know it, and you go, purposely to lie to the people. And why would they lie? It's because it's easier to tell smooth things, to tell everything go right, no problem, do whatever you want, and everything will be okay. And we see from the book of Judges that when people do that, it always goes bad. And then he was also advising them, if you want to learn, if you want to be well, if you want your life to be good, you have to learn from history. God purposely recorded history in his books of the Bible, the 66 books that compose the Bible. He put history down so that people learn from their lessons. And he said, go and check the boundaries of old. Go back to the way things were when things were better. Learn from history. And then God had placed watchmen on the rampart, on the walls of the city. And he said, your watchmen have been speaking out, saying, enemy is coming. Things are going wrong. Look down the line. And nobody wants to listen. And God had said to the watchmen, if you don't say what you see, then the fault will be on you. When people die, their blood will be on your hands. But if you tell the truth and they don't listen, it's not your fault anymore, it's the people's fault. And God said, now I've sent you watchmen after watchmen. You don't listen to them. And then another problem with these people, and that's everybody does it, they preferred their own systems and devices. They were so sure that they were so good. Just like the people of Babel that built a tower because they thought that they can reach heaven by themselves. And it didn't go well. The tower was never finished. And this is how languages started. Confusion. People could not understand each other anymore because there was no translator at the time. When you don't listen, when you don't learn, and then when you think you know better, just imagine your boss telling you to do something at work, and you say, thank you very much, and then you go the opposite. Then there will be reckoning time. Said, what happened? Why is it that it flopped? Yeah. So that was another problem. And then social evils were many. And things are no better today. So we can all learn from all this stuff. All the list of what God said was wrong. And he told people is, if you are, just like Jesus said, if you are not with me, you are against me. Anyone that doesn't plant with me scatters. You cannot have it both ways. Even at the end of the book of Deuteronomy, Moses told people, I place before you life and death. Choose life that you may live. And God at that time had listed all that would happen. If you obey, if you follow what I'm saying, you will be blessed here, there, and the other one. If you disobey, you'll be cursed. And the curse is not from God, it's our own making when we disobey. Like if you decide it rains cats and dogs, and you decide still to go without any raincoat or umbrella, and you get wet, well, then it's your fault, yeah? So, this is a serious matter, and we have to recount. Look at Jeremiah's book again, and see what God announced in details. It's not like people didn't understand. Jeremiah went on and on and on and on describing what would happen. He had a clear picture, a clear, detailed account in advance of the invasion, the loss of the war and bloodshed, exile, all this was described. And in fact, it happened. It's an unfortunate situation, but it did happen. And it is also a warning that if we ignore warnings, it will happen. If you overspeed on the road, you'll be caught and told to pay a fine before they even remove your driving license. And if you ignore a stop on the road and you collide with another vehicle, you may lose your life. And it will not be the fault of anybody but you. And then learning from history. is another very, very, very important point. So God bless you as you listen.